All right, here we go. Rocking and rolling. Um, oh, I thought I just muted my phone, but that's people with the perks can push through. Um, all right, so what I wanted to talk about was, yeah, so that goes to both my accounts. What I wanted to talk about was good faith conversations, and part of it is prompted because of a couple things, and I put these in the description. So, Chad, my buddy Chad, was talking to me about a comment to one of his recent videos by our boy Phlebas, who knows will probably maybe be watching this at some point, about the most recent Jordan Peterson conversation with Pierce Morgan, which I don't know, I thought largely was great. You could probably find things in there that one could complain about. I don't know if you're looking. But again, this goes to, so this is whatever. This is related. Already going all over the place. But in general, are you the kind of person who's inclined toward seeing unity, seeing connection, seeing communion, or seeing disunity, seeing what's wrong, seeing disintegration? And part of it is, I guess I mean that temperamentally too, because like I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, and so I'm very inclined to see what's missing. But I think conversationally and relationally, you got to be pretty careful with that temperament because you'll just, you got to have this proper ratio. I heard once it's between 4 and 12 positive to negative interactions with people, or else relationships can start to erode. Because, like, if you have fewer than 4 to 1 positive to negative interactions with someone, they just start to just be like, well, you're an asshole. And it's really hard to be around you. It's just so contentious and difficult all the time. Or, or if you have over 12 to 1 positive to negative interactions, people think you're a pushover and there's not enough tension. There's not enough um, challenge. People ultimately, and it varies from person to person, but people want to be challenged. They don't want to think you're not a real person, that you don't have any of your own insights. That's like sycophants. So, but anyhow, this Jordan Peterson conversation with Piers Morgan, I think he laid out really, really well. There's a couple clips. I have a couple clips on my own channel that I made of it that I just share with some friends about, oh, what are they called? Like, if you go into someone's channel, or this is how my own channel, if you go into like history or something, you can find clips that people have made on other people's channels, I think, or people share clips with you. And then assume because you make clips that are public. So I have some clips on my channel that are, how do you get there? Yeah, I get there through history. Your clips that are like, Peterson said, like, what he talked about, what are you if you lie? Um, which is just so good. I almost wish if I were more technologically savvy, I would figure out how to play that in here. Um, because part of it is Pierce is asking him about if he believes in God and all these things, but I think he said, like, who are you if you lie? And I clipped that into part one and part two, and then part of that is telling the truth. Um, and he really said, if you're oriented to this uh, unknown, unarticulable future that is the good. And again, this is the classic Christian good. Again, to plug that conversation with Kyle Lowry and DC Schindler on his book Freedom from Reality. But if you live with an orientation toward the good that is this pre-John Lockean understanding of the good as that which I like and brings me pleasure versus the evil as to which I don't like and creates suffering in me, which if you think about it for a little while, obviously can't be Christian because Christ suffered a lot and Christ was made perfect by what he suffered. And suffering and martyrdom, testimony, witness, Christian witness has always been related to martyrdom. You either have the red martyrdom of those who proactively give their life for their faith, and then you have the white martyrdom of people who consistently, through the mundane choices of life, choose to die to themselves. And no matter what, you're a martyr. To be a Christian is to be a martyr, a nonviolent, loving martyr. So Jordan Peterson talks about this orientation to this truth, which I would say it's kind of like the thing behind the thing behind the thing, or it's the truth um, beyond the truth that you currently apprehend, is another way that I often say it. And if you're submitted to that, I don't know ultimately at the end of the day how you can fight with people in a way that is not ultimately rooted and submitted to love and mutual growth and understanding. Um, like I don't know how you can have this zero sum, because essentially Jordan Peterson will talk about, and he talks about in there, like if you, because he says, you know, like if I come on this show, Pierce, and I have this preconceived idea and goal of what I want to do and how I want the conversation to go and where I want you to get to change your idea. Um, that's essentially what Peterson talks about. He had this guy on, a psychologist, a few months ago, talking about different forms of psychopathy. This was a guy who was an expert in psychopathy, and one of them, and I love this. I think this is pervasive in most intellectual discourse in America or in the world today, but it's Machiavellian psychopathy, where you have a preconceived understanding of the good, of where you want the conversation to go, of what you think needs to happen, and you it's like C.S. Lewis talks about, it's bulverism. Essentially, it's like you assume you're right, and then you argue backwards, and you justify it with your reason. And I don't know, I was sending a box this morning to people in the Boxer group, and I was interacting with Chad about his question because of his interaction with Phlebas on in the comments of his channel. And it's just you can't, you ought not to do that, because you don't, the reality is you don't know if you're right. None of us do. We all think we do, because that's, again, this is like what I was saying in, I think, my last live stream. That's what it is to hold an opinion. But at the end of the day, you don't ultimately know if you're right. You don't know what the future is. You don't know, to even know what you really think is a very, very difficult thing. You have to have a rein on your ego. You have to be an integrated person. You have to, essentially, to know what you really think about things, you have to never lie. As Dostoevsky said, especially, like, the most important thing is to never lie, especially to yourself. And Peterson's talked about that before, because if you lie to yourself, you essentially poison your own organ of apprehending truth, and then you're really screwed. And so these kinds of conversations that are zero sum, that are Machiavellian and psychopathic, where you assume you're right and then reason backwards, which is, I think, pretty much what we've learned happens in cognitive science anyhow, is your prefrontal cortex, your conscious apprehension of ideas and propositions is future oriented, because, like, who you are and what you've integrated and what you've done is your acting. It's what you've already embodied. It's what you've acted. So, like, you could think, like, your personal habits and rituals and ideas that have been integrated into your life as far as diet. This is kind of like you are what you eat. Like, how you treat your body and how you exercise and how you act, the choices that you make is who you are. Because, like Rilke says, the point is to live everything. So, like, who you are isn't your ideas about yourself. Like, that's the future. That's to help you orient toward the future so that you can make decisions and you can change who you actually are, which is what you're embodying. But who you are is what you're embodying. And so when we go into intellectual conversations, um, we need to be very, very careful to hold our opinions with open hands. I think a good question is to ask, for people to ask, is to, like, what is my goal in engaging in this intellectual conversation? Is it to justify yourself? Because if your goal is to justify yourself, you're operating egoically. And and that's, like, there's no point. There's no point in even talking. It's like you're fundamentally operating in a solipsistic way, in a self-referential way, in a wrongly self-referential way, in a way where you're self-deluded. You're bullshitting yourself. So, Christian, let's see what we say here. You can do what you know is right, be wrong about that, repent toward what you now know to be right, and never have lied about it. Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think, hey Dolly, what's up? And that's the way to go. But like that's the thing is if you're never open to the truth outside of the truth that you currently apprehend, you can't repent because you'll never see it. Like that's what McGilchrist talks about with like lopsided left-brainedness. You all you can do is work within the frames and the systems of that closed loop of of what you think you see, of your ego, of your egoic knowing. That's what I mean by that term egoic knowing. And you unconsciously built up defense mechanisms and repressions, coping mechanisms, however you want to say it, of this right brain stuff, which is really your periphery. So like when you look, it's the exact same thing in your brain as if you in your vision, because those things are related. But like your focus, what you focus on, your focal attention is here, and then your dang right, this is the channel where the cool kids comment. Philip, correct. Um, but then your periphery is what's outside of that. So like you're focused, you're doing something, all of a sudden a tiger coming from your periphery. You see it, and you don't really know what it is, but you're just like, oh shit. And you turn and look, that's error correction. Like that's what that's for. But that's right brain. It's like something manifesting outside of your focal attention. But your left brain can't see that. Your focus can't see that because it's out here. It's fundamentally not what you're focusing on. So like you have to be open to that, to seeing what you don't currently now see, to being wrong. The apophatic, the unknowing, has to enclose and include the cataphatic. The unknown is greater than the known, must be, and you have to include that. You have to include the unknowing in what you know, which is learned ignorance, which is, the knowing you don't know. It's this that Socratic thing. Um, so Lynn says, so is this what confessionalism is? Yeah, I mean, I think so. Confessionalism is essentially the attempt at like a groupthink. I mean, they would never cage it this way, but again, this is what I think this is what it is in practice. Like again, it's not about intentions, it's about reality. So like nobody intends this, but like this is why we have that saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Good intentions all don't always end in hell. Sometimes they do. And so like nobody I mean, what percentage of the population are truly psychopathic? I can't remember what it is. Is it something like 4? I made some comment once on a channel or live stream or a comment about psychopaths, and someone had very painful experiences with psychopaths took offense at my comment and said the percentage is actually a little bit higher, a few percentages higher. Because I was basically diminishing like psychopaths. And there's just not that many of them, and statistically there's not, but they do exist. So um, I don't know. I could really be taken advantage of by psychopaths because uh, a lot of times, well, at least in practice with real people, I tend to assume, well, I don't know, is this true? One of the 2 is true. Me and my dad are different. Like, I assume the best. I think big picture, like, big 30,000-foot view, I assume the best, and then sometimes with people that I know, I can assume the worst, or I can assume bad things, and my dad's kinda the opposite, where, like, he speaks very aggressively at, like it's that Dostoevsky quote that I love of Father Zosima, where he gives this illustration of this man, this great philanthropist who loved mankind, but then couldn't stand to be alone in a room with another person for very long and recoiled at their touch. So, like, I love mankind, but I hate man. I hate a person. I hate all people, like, in reality, but I love mankind, this theoretical man, you know? And my dad's kinda the opposite, where he, like, can get very frustrated and whatever, part of this is his own indoctrination of confessionalism in church, I'm sure, POS theology, but he can be upset at mankind broadly, but then or like any category of people, but then that person moves in next door to him and he's just like the most loving sacrificial neighbor ever. So confessionalism to me, Lynn, is more like yeah, I think it is lying to yourself, but it's not knowing that you're lying to yourself because it's a what you truly believe. And this is the difference. This is why I like to distinguish between the individual and the person, is because oh, Dolly, I'm sorry, I didn't even notice you. I'll add you in. Let me try to finish this. Um, hey, what up?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, good to see you.
I
Good to.
just thought I'd, yeah, you too. I just thought I'd pop on just to show that you have company, but I don't know if I can participate in the conversation. But yeah, I just thought I'd pop on,
Oh,
and
cool.
I'm interested in what you're saying, what you're talking about confessionalism. It's actually pretty hard for me to understand or to wrap my head around. Like, could you put it in like layman's terms or?
Man. So I try to. Like this is so I I empathize with your inability to not understand because this is like everyone because this is like
Okay.
I mean no joke. This is I've
Mm,
basically been talking about this term. Like I think I'm the first one to ever even mention the term in this channel. I've been talking about this with Paul for like 5 years. So and a lot of people I think struggle to understand what I'm talking about. And I think part of it is because it's like that, there's this David Foster Wallace quote, which a lot of people are familiar with, where he's giving a commencement speech, I think at some school, and he gives this story of these fish that are swimming, and this old fish swims by, and he says like, how's the water, boys? And they just look at each other and they're like, what's water? Because they just like
right. Okay.
they have no idea what water is, and confessionalism, I would argue, is the thing largely I think it came out of the West historically, but it's global now because we've globalized it
Mm.
through technology and media and Hollywood, and I mean, the Western world has taken over the world because like capitalism, liberalism, like we've taken over the world. And it's fundamentally confessionalist, and so it's really hard to explain. This is probably not
All right.
helping.
It's chilled. It's chilled. Okay, but so maybe I should ask this. Like, what is your passion behind it? Like, why are you so like
Yeah,
talking about it? Why is it important to you or not important? Like, maybe you don't need to describe or explain it,
yeah,
but maybe I can understand like what your feels are or what it does for you in your life or what is it causing a problem? What is it
yeah.
like? I
No,
don't know
great
if that
question.
helps.
No, that is, yeah. Well, hopefully it
Okay.
will help. I can try to talk about that. So so I can like this is why I came up with this idea of mosaic vision because I can point to all these different things, but I can't. This is part of the nature of what naming something is. Like I remember Paul on his channel once, he came up with, or someone came up with this term Big Eva, talking about like evangelicalism, Big Eva, and all of a sudden it was this condensation of all these things that just went zhoosh, and people were like, "Oh, I know what
Mm.
that is." It's like naming this principality or a subtle body or a spirit. There's this pattern where
Okay.
you see all of its effects. It's like the wind blows where it wills, and
Yeah.
you see its effects, and then all of a sudden, if you can name that spirit, like that's what I'm trying to do with confessionalism, but other people just can't quite see it. So why it matters to me, sorry. I talk in a very rambling way.
Just be free. Just be free.
Yeah. So I think what's happening, this is kind of what I wanted to talk. This your question clarifies brings me back to why I wanted to have this conversation and this live stream is because I think what we are doing in this little corner of the internet, and particularly in these live streams and in Paul Vanderklay's sphere and orbit, I think these kinds of conversations where we are openly talking about stuff that we don't quite know what we're talking about, and we're having very diverse conversations with people from like all over the world, from all sorts
Yeah.
of backgrounds, from all sorts of things, that this fundamentally is a non-confessionalist conversation because there are no
Okay.
ideological confessional bounds on it. But
Oh,
it allows us in this very open way to engage in a pursuit of the truth outside of the truth that we currently apprehend, that we currently think we know.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I like that. Okay, wow. But okay, so with that, I mean, you obviously need some, like, at least one person to be there to listen, to at least be like the, if you're pinging, if you can,
To mirror.
I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
always call it like a ping pong. No, imagine like a ping pong
Yeah.
table, but like up, and you're
Yeah.
pinging. The person can just sort of like back to you,
Yeah.
but just by
Totally.
listening or whatever. And sometimes it helps to sort of just be, I know I am a lot of the times just kind of like blah, 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 all over the place, but at some point something will like come and I'll be like, oh my gosh, what was that? Or I'll arrive, or it will come, that truth or some essence of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's about, like, I think there's an important part of it, which is like the conversation and the speaking it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because what is it Jordan that says, what is, you think out loud? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, he
misquote it
has said that.
definitely. But there's something about it that just, yeah, it helps you realize. And when you say mosaic, I mean, it's all these pieces. And for some reason, when you said that, in my mind, I was thinking of like sort of a glossy, shiny enamel type um, mosaic with like different colors. Hard to describe, sorry, it's in my head. But
Yeah.
all sort of reflecting into one another and becoming like this whole piece.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't see it at first. You kind of like, you'll see it at different stages eventually when you like make progress into like a into, I don't know, you'll feel it, because it's like you're trying to get somewhere, and then you might land at a place, and you're like, okay, I can go from here. And you can build around it and start eventually like completing that piece,
Yeah.
in a way. And then like you'll have something, and then you could, that's that's more substantial and has depth and things like that, and is understood. I don't know. Now I'm like going on and on and on.
Yeah, but that's what
Anyway,
no,
I'm
but
listening
that's
to you.
good. That's what this is.
You you're triggering my creativity in my head. So I don't know which side of the brain that is. Probably a percentage of both and different parts. But yeah, I like what you're saying. But anyway, I don't want to talk. I really want to listen. So sorry about that.
Well, I don't yeah, I'm normally not too um incapable of talking for a long time. So
Cool. You go.
um yeah, okay. So what you were just talking about, so yeah, I have a video on my channel because that's one of my made up Lukeism words, is this idea of mosaic vision, which is like what you're just talking about,
Love it.
that mosaic. So it's unity and multiplicity at the same time. So you have all this particularity and everything is that. Like Peugeot will talk about this a lot with he has a great video where he talks about faith essentially being seeing, and you can illustrate it with anything, but like a chair. Yeah, we got another friend, Max. What
Hello,
up?
how
So
you doing?
like, hey, let me finish this idea of the chair and then I want to see what you have to say. So like anything is a unity. To see something is to see the unity of a bunch of multiplicity of a lot of different parts. So like to see
Mm.
a chair is made up of many different parts. But to even conceive of it or to apprehend of it as a chair is to see the unity of all those things simultaneously. It doesn't make all the parts go away, but all of the things are together at once, and that's faith. But like the problem is
Oh
that
man, that's deep.
conceptually, it's the exact same thing. Like you won't, you're people, and there's an evolution of consciousness. Like this came up a little bit in like our understanding of quantum mechanics. Like that um Oppenheimer movie just came out, you know? And when Oppenheimer was first talking about splitting the atom and quantum theory and all these different things, like nobody had any idea what he was talking about. And they couldn't because it was a novel idea. It was like a new
Mm.
thing. Nobody could apprehend it because I really like Rupert Sheldrake too. He has this theory of morphic fields, which are just like relational patterns of habits that we participate in. And so essentially, and he like will illustrate it. There's lots of ways he can illustrate it. Dang, see, this is what's hard. There's so many. I have so many pieces of all these things. I'm trying to bring them to help people see these things. But like the idea of quantum theory was this new burgeoning morphic field that nobody could see
Oh,
and understand. And then all of a sudden, though, once people started participating in it, people could do it more. Like there's an example of this in chemistry. I have a background in chemistry. It's like the first time that you make a crystalline structure. I know, Elizabeth. The first time you make a crystalline structure, hey girl,
Hello.
it really resists formation. So like the first time you make a
Wow, you seem
crystal,
like the
it'll
happiest person ever. Sorry.
no, she's very
I've
happy.
never seen
She's a
so
lot.
much joy come out of a person. Wow.
We hung out at
Thank you
Thunder
for
Bay
that.
together. She has a lot of she's a lot in the best possible way.
Oh, Luke, you're darling.
So
Anyway, keep
so the
going. Keep going. This is good.
so like the crystal, the first time a crystal forms, the first time a crystal has ever been formed, and a lot of them have happened throughout history, it will resist formation. So like in pharmaceuticals or something, when you're making a new pharmaceutical, it'll really resist coming in. But then once it comes into formation, it will subsequently happen easier and easier every subsequent time. And so it's like that crystal
Whoa.
gets a memory, and it learns that pattern, and then the more it learns that pattern, the faster it can do it. Or like think about people running like a sub 4 minute mile in track. Like people were like, this is impossible. It'll never happen. And all of a sudden someone did it, and then boom, and then it just started happening like lightning. That kind of stuff happens. Like
Whoa.
there are all these relational patterns. So anyhow.
No, but this idea of formation and form and shape is really important, because Dr. McGilchrist, he's constantly exploring as well, which is one thing I really like about him, because he writes this book, but he doesn't keep regurgitating it. He comes up, he's trying to see something else that he hasn't seen before, but he talks.
Yeah.
He talks about form, he talks about shape, and I'm wondering how, and there's something, this idea of the crystal, because I'm really allergic to the word hierarchy. If I hear it one more time, I'm going to literally die, and that'll be the end of me. So I just want
It's
everybody
you.
to know
It's you.
that.
Oh my goodness.
It's
I'll
me. It's
probably say
the
it.
Now I know exactly.
lady. It's the anti-hierarchy lady, because I think it's more like what you were describing, Luke, and that's why Mosaic. But I just wonder if this Mosaic thing isn't more, okay, Luke, tell me what you think, Dalik, and hi, Max, I don't know you. I think maybe it's something to do, it's maybe a mosaic crystal or a crystallized mosaic, or like there's something really complex about reality, and it's definitely not hierarchy. McGilchrist is so clear, and I've been trying to nail him on this for 3 years, and he didn't like it the first time because I'm a lady. And, but this whole idea of above and below, it's left hemisphere, Luke. It's left hemisphere. Yeah. So think about that. So there goes your confessionalism in a way too, because what's that all about? Confessionalism is necessarily up, and it's Gnostic. It's got to be Gnostic. That's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, I do think confessionalism is Gnostic because it's fundamentally disembodied in these abstract ideas with a disregard for the emergent reality that they create. Right. So yeah, it's fundamentally Gnostic. It has to be.
It's
but
horribly
I don't know. I don't want to push back on your hierarchy stuff because I would. I think you can. I think you can embrace hierarchy in a non-duality that includes the duality of the up and down of hierarchy. But Max, what up?
It can't be that way. So it's got to be form and shape.
Hey.
Hey,
Luke, I know you as the guy who leaves the best YouTube comments.
Oh,
you just leave the most amazing YouTube comments. But no, I just wanted to come in and say hi. I don't know how much I actually have to add to the conversation. Although I'm curious now about the up and down thing, because it seems like that's something that's been discussed a lot. With like so I like Peugeot a lot, and he talks a lot about how like, so you raise something up so that it becomes like a center of attention. Like which like he talks about that, like even from like a phenomenological perspective, where you stand up on a chair, you can see more things. You stand on the top of a mountain, you have a bigger view. Maybe I'm just not following the conversation properly, but like how does what you're saying about crystals or whatnot, how does that take away from that, or how does that, because it seems like I'm sorry, Elizabeth, right? You were saying that something about that up and down way of seeing the world is like not compatible with that. Is that what you were saying? Maybe I'm just not following properly.
Elizabeth, are you frozen? She must be frozen. She doesn't hold
Oh,
that still.
Yes. Yeah, she's
Um,
frozen. But who gets
yeah,
frozen in such a good, like, you know?
yeah, she's
yeah,
pondering.
right.
She's thinking.
She's the
Yeah,
thinker. Yeah.
So like I think a lot of these
that's lovely.
comments, so like these are great comments because these are
Yeah,
these are non-dualities that include duality.
the
The
falling
oh,
upward. Andrew
the
said,
falling
what did
upward.
Andrew say?
Yeah.
I love that. Wrote it
That's
down.
that's a
That's a
Richard Rohr
nice
book,
one.
by the way. That's a title of a Richard Rohr
Hey?
book. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Which it's probably fine on Grail Country or on my channel, but like if you put that on Paul's channel, people would freak out. However, the guy, and people maybe don't know this, but the whole guy that started John Van Donk that started Estuary,
Oh,
he
yeah.
loves Rohr. So there we go. Roar. Roar. Elizabeth, you
Yeah,
want to come
that's how it's
back?
spelled.
Did you get your
Thank you.
stuff fixed?
Sure.
Do you want to answer your radical egalitarianism, anti-hierarchy stuff?
No, I'm almost. Okay. Think about this,
I'm loving
and
this.
are we ready? No, because McGill, I love Dr. Ian McGilchrist. I think he fleshes out Jonathan Pageau's way of seeing things because of his brilliant academic mastery of so many different areas of knowledge. So I think he really likes working with definitions of words so that we really know what he's talking about when he says reason, when he says rationality, et cetera, et cetera. But the whole thing that he said, he talks about reality being round. And I think any of us artistic minded people in this group, Max, I don't know if you're an artistically minded person, but it seems to me that the linear sequential thing, like it had its day, it's on its way out, and somehow this whole idea of roundness and and falling upward. I don't know if you can. I've been reading the Gospels, and I can't see any up and down. Sorry, but I keep looking, but it seems to me it's more like presencing. So maybe we can have a round presencing mosaic.
I mean, I think
I don't
Peugeot would
know.
like point to like Christ climbing to the top of a mountain to like give like the Sermon on the Mount, for example.
Oh, also, Elizabeth, you have there's some popping with your speaker, I think, somehow.
You've got
Well,
so
I'm
much
not an island in
energy.
the middle of the Mediterranean.
Oh no.
You're in the middle of the Mediterranean. Where?
Yeah, I'm on
She's a
this little
globetrotter.
island.
Oh, an island.
Not really. Sorry, am I ruining
Awesome.
your stream because this isn't working very well?
Well, there is it makes there's like a little pop every once in a while that makes it. I mean, we
Okay,
can
then
make out what
take
you're
me
saying.
out.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, leave all your great comments. We'll try to talk about
yeah.
what you were talking about.
Sad.
So the best thing to do
It
when you feel
is.
itchy in a hierarchy is to go down and look up. So I mean, it's just hard to make sense of. So my take on hierarchy would be that there's kind of like Max, what you were saying. There's a very obvious, I think, lifting up and salience part to hierarchy and like going up on a mountain and God being on a mountain. But I think the weird thing, and this is very in line with Jordan Daniel Wood, who I've been plugging forever lately, and the identity of identity and non-identity, this kind of Hegelian Christianity of like the duality that includes the non-duality that includes duality, is yes, up, but then up becomes down because the incarnation, but Philippians 2, the high became lowly. In a Christian hierarchy, it's not a hierarchy. Nate and I talk about this all the time, and friends in the Grail Country world is a Christian hierarchy fundamentally cannot be this zero-sum thing where the higher is domineering and exerts power over the lower. A Christian hierarchy is fundamentally the opposite, where the higher serves the lower. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And so that's not a negation of hierarchy, but it's a negation of power and domineerance within hierarchy.
You're making me think of, again, Jordan. Anyway, he said something in some speech somewhere, but it caught my attention. He said, I don't know if it was a student or an assistant, I don't know, somebody that helps him, who told him he must stop using the word dominance hierarchy. And so they eventually settled on competence hierarchy. But this is like, I'm taking it way out of context. It was like a 1 to 2 hour thing.
Yeah.
But so I just wanted to throw that in there, I suppose. But yeah, just when you spoke about that, I thought, yeah, and he stopped saying it because of, I suppose, the connotations about that. But I know that I'm not giving any sort of answer. I barely understand it myself. I guess it's like, for some reason, I think that there's like a depth or something more that I just can't grasp yet. And I think that's why I don't quite understand it.
Yeah. There's you just reminded me of a McDonald quote that I want to find because it's my favorite one, and I say it every chance that I get. Because you were just saying I don't quite understand it yet, and I'm not gonna be able to find it fast enough, but I'll quote the part of it that I know. But like, it's from Lilith, which is one of those books that like, it's one of the pieces of art that changed that really, which is apropos to this, changed the way that I perceive reality. Like I didn't know what was happening. I mentioned this on a live stream, and Anselman asked me like why, because like I was just reading it in a coffee shop like 10 years ago, and I just was at some point toward the end, and I was just openly sobbing because it was just like wrecking me, and I had no idea why. Like I just couldn't even, like I had no there was but there's this quote from Lilith that explains what was happening to me. And he says basically there's a section there where he's just like, I'm sorry I cannot explain the thing to you. I but barely apprehend it myself. And he says the fact is that there's nothing in you to understand it. And the fact is that most of us don't really, they say the fact is that no man understands anything. And he said that is your first tottering step, not towards understanding, but toward the capacity of one day understanding. And he says within that same quote somewhere that like nobody understands anything. You're familiar with things, and they're in front of you, and so you think you understand them. You conflate that with understanding, but that's not understanding. You're just familiar. And so like
I'm loving what you're saying right now.
Yeah, true understanding is like hard. It's really hard. It's essentially, I think, in order to truly understand things fully, in the same way that Christ did. Honestly, this is all about the tree and the knowledge of good and evil. Like a lot of this, that's what
that
this
is quick.
About.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. We're flipping it. Okay. With you. Cool. Carry on.
Okay. I mean, it's really about a lot of what I think is going on in the evolution of consciousness, and in this little corner is we are figuring out the difference of discernment versus judgment. And I think a lot of what the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was about judgment, like in an absolute binary either or way, and which is we have to discern. Everyone has to discern.
Yeah.
But I think we live in a world of judgment, which is also related to the whole topic of this conversation: good faith conversations versus zero-sum ones. Because the kind of hierarchy that Elizabeth doesn't want that's what it is. It's a zero sum. It's like winners and losers. Jordan Peterson talks about that. Like you have a conflict with your wife. You don't want to win. Like what does winning look like? You're right. Well, then did you win? You didn't win. That's not winning. And we treat this weird objectivism that we live in makes us think. I mean, that's why I came up with this term, like the exclusivist religion of the right side of history. When people talk about being on the right side of history, and I don't want to be caught on the wrong side of history. Well, you're assuming that where you are is the right side of history, and that everybody that's not you and your position is on the wrong side. Well, like, no one knows that. Like, we don't know, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Nice distinction between discernment and judgment. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why I read that out loud.
No, well,
Okay.
it's good to do that because some people might just listen to this, so that's a good habit.
Can I ask something random? I don't know if I'll be able to
Yeah.
get what I'm seeking, but anyway, so you've got, if just for an experiment for my own self, but so you've got discernment, you've got judgment, and what can be a third component to discernment, judgment, and then something else to put in there to sort of figure out, because in between all of those, because you made a distinction between discernment and judgment, right? So if there's a third, then you can make a distinction there and a distinction there. Just, it can be something random.
What does that do
Yeah?
for you if you have three? What is that? What's the benefit?
It's for like just for my thoughts to try and spark. Yeah, I can't say what. Yeah, so it's just a random question. I'll think of something.
I like that. I like that because that's just it's grist for the mill or whatever. I mean, because that is the truth, because there is if we're gonna go with that Christologic, my buddy Cal has been talking a lot about this recently too, of like judgment, which like I don't know. He has a great podcast, which I should just promote because he just works out these ideas, and part of it is in conversation, and he integrates the conversations, but a lot of it is just his free flowing idea. And he started a new podcast. He's trying to become Catholic, but he doesn't know if he's a heretic, so he like got rid of his old podcast and started a new one because he didn't want to. The new one's called Fragments. I'll maybe put it in like a comment afterwards, but yeah, Kalia Rivet. It's like a anglicized French name, but Kalia, because he grew up Hare Krishna, so he's like he's so great. He's fantastic. But he's been thinking a lot about judgment and in relation to salvation and God's judgment, and because all these things, it's a very, I would say, Christian, but also like Taoist idea is the opposite is always included in the other thing. So I think this is why I like your idea of trying to get three in there, because if you just have a hard binary between discernment and judgment, you'll fall into the problem of either orism, but I think so.
And
what is a third?
Like it can extend, like it can go to 4, I suppose, as well. Like, let's say you've got, I'm going to use this idea, which I've only sort of used once before. Let's say you've got 2 coins and, they're flat, but they do have bottom sides, so you can flip both. But if I can just take that and sort of make it into discs, and you've got four discs, okay? So you can extend it to 4, and maybe like from there you can sort of project that into some kind of 4D thing. But now I'm getting a little bit complicated. But I'm just saying I'm not trying to restrict anything by saying it has to be 3, because like, yeah, think of if the crystalline or crystallizing structures, or like yeah, I'm trying to like get to a more dynamic or complex type of thinking stream, I suppose, that I can sort of paddle along or check out or whatever. Fish. I don't know.
This comment, judge not lest you be discerned. I want you to expand on that. That's a succinct way of saying it. But also, why
didn't you come on?
Yeah. So it's Dolly, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I just didn't know if I was getting the right pronunciation on the A. But the kind of intuitive thing that you're doing and trying to throw in a third, I think is really helpful. And my mind tends to work that way. Like another one of my good friends in this little corner is Jason, Almond Trees' channel. I don't know, you've probably seen.
Almond.
Maybe if you've been around, you've seen his comments around and stuff.
I think I recognize the surname.
He's
that's
so
the only
great.
Person who has an almond in their name.
Well, so that's just his handle, because I don't know, he's obsessed.
Okay, well.
There's a reason why his last name is Schwarzer or something like that.
Okay.
But Jason, he's a fantastic intuitive mind. Like I love talking to people like that just throw out things and they're like, this is random. But like the thing is it's not random. You just don't know how to connect the dots. Like it wouldn't
Yeah,
just be
yeah, yeah.
coming into your head if it were completely random. Like you're seeing something there. I don't believe in randomness. I guess I'll say that. Like
I
true, the
didn't know
kind of
that was
true,
something to believe in.
well, I mean, it's kind of like
Like,
what I mean by that
okay.
is like the materialistic kind of truly random thing, like it's because everything's connected, everything's integrated. Like so a guy from this channel, Michael Lady, he works in cybersecurity, or he did at one point, and he's talked about that before. I don't know, in some I think it was a recorded thing. Hey,
Is that your,
Rooster,
who's,
it's not
is it
mine.
from you?
Yeah, that's me. That's for
Max?
me. Yeah.
Okay.
That's so cool. You have a
Yeah.
rooster.
I'm in West Africa, so there's roosters everywhere.
What? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. You just sort of far, but up the road from me. I'm in
Really?
South Africa.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
hi, Paul.
Paul loves to just put this on. This is
Luke
Paul.
still
I'll
has some
make
Calvinism in him.
That's probably true. That is probably true. But also, this is
I
something
think
that
he means he likes you.
That's hilarious. But Paul likes to take just broad Christian universal things and then just call them Calvinism.
I've
And
noticed.
then, yeah. And I'm just like, that's not Calvinism, Paul. That's just Christian. Like, that's just trusting God. But anyhow, I don't. Maybe I am partially a Calvinist, but if I'm a Calvinist, I would be like one of the fun ones, like George MacDonald, if you want to call him a Calvinist. I'm not a systematic Calvinist because that would be the opposite of what I'm talking about here. So
Okay.
um, anyhow, I talk about Calvinism a lot. Go
Could I?
Google, go to my channel and search Calvinism. Yeah.
Okay, if that's really what you want. But I just want to redirect back to you. You came to that point of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, and you were busy
Uh-huh.
starting something there. And then I don't know if I was the one to interrupt you. Sorry about that. But you went into judgment, discernment, and then it was a whole triangle, quadruple, da 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 da. But I just want to come back to that because you're quite like bold in saying that, and I feel like there was more that you might have wanted to speak on there. If not, then
So that's
I'm
that's
just
an
interested in
area.
what you have to say.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a Sherry, I think, has a lot of great thoughts on this too, but this is like an area where I feel like the tree of knowledge thing is an area where I feel like I often call it like a intuitive metal detector. Like I kind of have this intuitive metal detector where like I'll sense gold. I'm like, I know gold is there, but I haven't like dug it up yet. I haven't gone through all the work to get my hands on it. And so how these things relate, like discernment. So I think so I'll just give you the mosaic, and I don't know that I can explain it, of like all the pieces. Like
All good.
discernment, judgment, salvation, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the white stone name, and like who you truly are. Like those things are
Mhm.
all connected. And I don't know that I can explain to you, like with the chair, the unity. I can't give you the chair yet, but those are all the pieces of the chair, and I see it, but I can't name it yet. This and which also gets into the naming and memory.
So is the concept that the knowledge of good and evil that you get from the tree is the knowledge is sort of deceptive because what it's communicating to you is that good and evil are sort of this binary, and that's
Yes.
that's the why of the
Yes.
tree.
Yes. I think that's a huge part of it. And this gets into a debate. Man, I wish some of my I'll share this with Yosef, because Yosef is in a lot of offline conversations that we have, like some of our good Jewish friends, or Chezi or something, or Zevi. Like Zevi's been having a lot of these channels on Seekers of Unity. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that channel, but like there's some just brilliant. I wish we had more like Muslim mystic things too, because there's a lot of great stuff in that. I just am not familiar with that, and I'm becoming familiar with the Jewish stuff. But like within Jewish thought, like it's very much that verse in Isaiah that's just like, I am the Lord your God, I create Ra, the word in Hebrew is Ra, or chaos, or like evil, essentially. So like the kind of Christian
I'll
ideas
go
that
check
want to,
that
there's a
out.
lot of Christian streams that want to put this really hard binary on good and evil. And I think it's exactly what you were saying, Max. It's this hard binary and distinction between good and evil. But I think that's what that is, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that's what Adam and Eve fell into, is like, we think we can be like God and discern these things. Actually, I think this is what the book of Job is about. Like, I wish Jess were here. Jess, are you out there? Bat call to Jess. Get in here for Job. He's probably working.
Yeah, I mean, if I can say, like, whoever's there, like, if when I pop, can I like tag you in? Because I'm gonna pop off. But
Yeah.
like, I'm trying to encourage whoever it is to come in. Come on, join the conversation. This is, all of you matter. You're all valid. What you have to say is important, and you never know. Like, come on. Anyway,
you have like
McMo, you
sweet.
came on the other day, and what you said was very interesting. Come on.
He clearly has good stuff to say because he always has great comments. We have all these people in here are having great comments. So this one, I'll riff. Paul's eating. Plus he can't get on here and say
you're
something
reminding me,
heretical.
Paul. I've got to go eat now too. So I'm going to love and leave you guys, but I'm going to still listen. Thank you so much. I actually wrote down a couple of things and love it. And I love your creativity. It's awesome. Anyway,
Well,
have a good day.
I love your encouragement. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
We've got to do that. Bye.
See ya. Can't come
So
on,
is there?
I'm blushing. Hilarious. Yeah, go.
Well, it seems like you definitely experience times where, you seem to be trying to figure out whether something that you're trying to do is good or whether something you're trying to do is evil.
Yeah.
But it does. I mean, it seems
that's discernment, right?
Right. So it's like the categories still exist, and so what are you saying is that there's a lot of gray area? Is that a good way to talk about what you're saying, or is that oversimplified?
I don't know. So all these comments are good, and I would affirm a lot of them like this. To be beyond good and evil is to be evil. I don't know exactly what I think about that, but I think I know what you're pointing at, and I think that's good. Or even like this comment, Calvinism helps us transcend the binary of good and evil. So like, I can talk about my own personal experience with Calvinism and even my understanding of that, because part of this gets into like the image of the spiral, right? I love the image of the spiral. I like spiral dynamics. I like integral theory, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's a really helpful way of understanding like further up and further in. And so like it's a way of understanding a progress, but also with movement. So like a spiral is almost like a combination of divine simplicity and process theism, or like process, but also like a unity behind all unities, because Peugeot talked about this actually in a conversation sometime recently, where he was saying the spiral is like the most basic image. It's the most satisfying image for a human being, because it's simultaneous. Oh, it was with his conversation with DC Schindler on climbing on Mount Sophia. But it was because a spiral is both a line and with movement. So it's like it's a circling of a unity, of a one. So it's both one and many at the same time, or one and more than one. And
is that related to like in your mind to Saint Maximus talking about like a dynamic rest as your end state? Is that a similar topic?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even, I don't know that I've even heard that before, but yes. I mean, in my just immediate knee-jerk response to that, yeah, absolutely. And I think you have to have that, otherwise, and that gets into why I love Peter Rollins too, is because otherwise you get into this idea of heaven or perfection as being this quantitative, static fullness that's like 100%. Well, then what do you do with 100%? It's like people sitting around on clouds playing harps all day. And people are like, well, that's dumb. What are we doing? Jake?
And there still
Line.
has to be something like I don't know, relative evil, or there's something to move away from if you're always progressing towards something.
Yes. And so like this is like what is I guess what I am really opposed to, I think this is correct, is this is something I've learned. I'm an extroverted thinker. I've been learning more about Myers-Briggs theory. I'm an extroverted thinker, and so this is something I even have to work on in my marriage because my wife is very much not so. She's an introverted thinker, and so when she speaks, it's something that she's very much processed within an internal cohesive system. And so when she speaks, it's something she really means. When I speak, it's something I mean, but I'm also like working it out. Like I could say something very like, do I really mean that? I mean, I think I mean that, but I don't know. Like I'm working it out. So the thing that I'm really against with evil is the I think false assumption, which I think is stemming from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, that we can make that prior to our perfection, which I would say is our suffering and death, to be really Christian about it, prior to our full creation, as John Baer would say, when Christ crucified, behold the man. Prior to that, if you think you can discern good and evil like God, you're in a delusion. And so I'm not like, this gets into like the hard questions that are more philosophical, which I don't have an answer to, of like the ontology of evil. Like does evil have, like, is evil real? Is it an existence? Is it just a privation, which is like what a lot of the Thomist kind of Catholic crowd went with, post-Augustinian crowd. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I acknowledge, in a very like phenomenological existential thing, I acknowledge its reality. Like it's what you move away from. It's hell.
Right.
So I acknowledge that kind of evil. I just think people if people are not willing to know the truth outside the truth they currently apprehend, they will make hard binary judgments about good and evil, and they will think they're on the right side of history, and they will demonize the other, and then all of their good intentions, their Christ, will become antichrist. That's one of my Lukeism sayings, is Christ and antichrist are a hair's breadth. The reason antichrist is deceiving is because it looks like Christ. So like, but everybody has all these, I just think most people aren't holy enough or integrated enough to really see things the way that they think they see things, myself included.
But so you still need to act, though. So you still need to act
Yes.
as if something is good, and as if something is worth aiming at, which is like, so it's like, even if, and I don't know, because even if you're not making that judgment, even if you're not saying there is such a thing as good and evil, that I'm, as far as I'm able to like discern, because I haven't, I'm not perfectly theost.
Yeah.
You're still sort of bound to, you're bound to acting as if you can sometimes.
Well, you have to make choices.
Right.
I mean, nobody's getting away from choices, and there's something very, like, another one of the books that fundamentally changed my life is East of Eden, and that's what that whole book is about. Is the center idea of that book that's played out in this story. Sherry, get in here. But the central idea that's played out in that book is this discussion of the Hebrew word temshel, which is which they come up to the conclusion that the proper translation of it is he mayest, which is, I think I think it's from the exhortation to Cain, where it's just like, um, evil is crouching at your door like a raging lion, and you have to make a choice. You have to figure out this day who you're going to serve, and like the idea is like he mayest, you can do this or this.
Okay.
Like that's really where we're living,
So it's like an important inflection point, is what that's talking about, is a point where something is driven to its conclusion and you go one way or the other, or maybe there's more than two directions. I don't know.
Well, I think, but I mean, this is where I would integrate repentance, is like, yeah, you have to make decisions. You have to choose. You have to do one or the other. But I think the kind of problem with ideology and confessionalism and all that kind of egoic stuff, groupthink that I think comes along with that, is you start to serve a principality that inhibits repentance. So then it takes that binary good and evil choice, which everybody has to do, and makes you incapable of repenting if you made a error. Like if I chose this, but like clearly this is wrong, but like I'm incapable of going against it because I'm trapped in this principality that doesn't let me. That's like a closed circle of the serpent, the Ouroboros. Like it doesn't allow for. That's why Tomberg in Meditations on the Tarot talks about that's what resurrection is. Is resurrection is freedom from the closed circle of the serpent, and that's what the spiral is because it opens up the circle into the spiral, and that's repentance, which is a key part of Christian faith. So like yeah, choose, discern, make choices. But the problem and part of the problem of like objectivism is absolutizing and concretizing that discernment into something that like you can never repent out of because you're not God. You don't have the monarchical vision, objectivism, where you can make these absolute objective truth. That's why I hate the term objective truth. Like I hate it. I think it's dumb. That doesn't mean that I'm denying truth, but I'm denying your ability to fully apprehend it at any time, because then it will close you into these traps. Okay, let's see. What do people say? There's a lot of comments. Sherry doesn't want to come in until she's had her coffee. And I agree the Holy Spirit can help, but like the problem with all these things is we have so many Sunday school answers and like Christ and Antichrist. So yeah, the Holy Spirit can help, but then all of a sudden it's just like, well, I have the Holy Spirit, or me and my camp have the Holy Spirit, and those people don't. And again, that's a trap. Like that will trap you into the ability to repent, because maybe the Holy Spirit's coming in and telling you you're wrong. Like you still have to discern that.
Have you followed the whole I don't know, rigorous, anti-rigorous debates going on in the Orthodox world right now?
No.
I mean, it's kind of related in that sort of one camp is holding very, very strongly to the idea that, I mean, they might put it that there is no grace outside of the church, or that outside of the church is undifferentiated darkness as far as grace. And yeah, and then the other camp, of course, is sort of saying that's not the case and pointing to all the historical places that the church has said that isn't true. But then like both sides do have saints that they're like referencing. So like Saint Cyprian apparently was, at least that's what's being said, is that Saint Cyprian was pretty solidly in the side of like there's no grace outside of the church, which truly doesn't make much sense to me. I'm pretty
well. So like to me. Again, it's the Christologic of identity and non-identity. I would affirm that, like on one level, on one take, I would say, yeah, there's no salvation outside of the church. That's what salvation is. But then again, you can absolutize that and concretize that to just be like, my conception and my understanding of what the church is this. And so then you're caught again in that binary where like you can't allow yourself to repent and to grow. And like I'm not going in some, maybe I am. I'm not trying to go in some hardcore completely independent, individualistic, subject, like spiritual church direction, because I'm not going to deny the physical, historical tradition and embodiment of the church. I mean, I affirm all that stuff, but like I'm also a universalist, so
right.
I think that's all going to come out in the wash, but again, I don't pretend to know how that's going to happen.
Sure. I just finished watching or just finished listening to the Lord of Spirits podcast on universalism yesterday. Did you get around to that?
But I should check it out, because I mean, I think those are obviously really interesting guys. I don't regularly listen to that, but
yeah, I don't either. I checked into that because I just thought that, I mean, it's an interesting topic to me. I wanted to see where they went with it. I don't know if you, All right, the maybe the most interesting point. So they come out against universalism insofar as they say that you can't act that from their perspective you can't say that God doesn't have a choice. Like you shouldn't act um as if it is necessary that God will save everyone. But they leave it like
Ooh,
you're going to be
I would,
annoyed by
I
this.
yeah,
They
I
leave
would
it.
love to be. I would love to argue counterpoints with them.
Yeah, no, I was wishing that you would have been able to talk to them as I was listening to them because that would have been fantastic. But yeah, that's what they say is that um well, so humorously they kind of accuse like David Bentley Hart of being somewhat Calvinistic in the way that he's thinking about God because they say this. So the Calvinists say that some people are predestined to damnation and other people are predestined to eternal life. And then David Bentley Hart is also a predestinationist. And he just thinks that everyone is predestined for eternal life. And they say that so that you can't like assign you can't yeah. So I don't know where that puts you philosophically, but they say that you can't act as if like you understand the way that God will act enough to say that will be His judgment for all people. It's like you have to leave God with freedom to do what He's going to do, and not say that He's evil regardless of the decision that He makes.
Yeah. So, my counter argument to that would be faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. And so, I don't think that freedom or choice, and I mean, and I know these guys wouldn't affirm this, is where it'd be great to have a conversation with them. I mean, not like I'm pitching it or something. Although, I mean, he probably wouldn't. I mean, Father DeYoung has been open to conversations with people, but I wouldn't. I don't like absolutizing any attribute of God really outside of, and even here, I mean, it's love. So like
Mm,
freedom, agency, choice, does God choose? I would argue that God, I mean, this is like even with Maximus talking about Christ and gnomic versus natural wills. I don't think God chooses in a gnomic way where he's like deliberating between options. Because I don't think perfection chooses between options. Perfection just is.
mm,
And like all those distinctions just start to fade away. And even like, uh, you know, being predetermining something, like that's all assuming this very linear progression of time thing that I think is really reductionistic in how causality works. And so, and those are all things I don't know. Like I just know those are too simplistic, at least from my understanding of it. And so I just can't. The thing for universalism with me, the simplest way to always talk about it is that it's the most beautiful. The George MacDonald kind of version of universalism is the most beautiful story, where mercy and justice are two sides of the same coin.
mm.
Like I was just having this conversation with Jason yesterday. Like to deny someone their justice is to deny them their mercy. You can't lose either. It doesn't mean that I don't believe in. I just, and I would affirm kind of like the consuming fire of God. It's just all the dross is burned off, the false self is burned off, but it's also a redeeming fire that is purifying you toward who you truly are, which is being an icon of God, Christ in me,
Right.
and
Well,
I
so
just
this is
don't
maybe this is
know.
annoying. I've an annoying thing to say, but maybe this is
Yeah.
like turning one of your other arguments back on this one is that perhaps we're not perhaps we can't judge the most beautiful story yet because we're not theist
Well,
enough.
well, true.
But I mean I don't see a more beautiful one than what you're describing. Like
Right.
I find that very convincing. But
Well, and that's all fine. Like I don't have a problem with that. Like that's totally true. That's valid. Yeah, I'm all you can ever do, again, we have to discern. All you
mm,
can ever do is say what you in as much as it's possible with you at this time is what you see to be true. And then, like, that's explicitly what Jordan Peterson says, to go back to that Pierce Morgan thing. Speak the truth as you see it, as clearly as you can, and try to keep watch over your tongue. Because, like, I don't know, I've been talking to this guy recently, Andrew, and then let the cards fall where they may. Sorry, I need to
Sure,
complete
sure.
one thought before I go on to another one. But I was talking to this guy, Andrew, the other day that I've started talking with, who, like, at some point reached out to Paul for a conversation. I was like, just talk to me. Paul's too busy with his puppy.
Mhm.
And we've been talking a little bit, and I think this is very true. Like, one of the ways that you can know, I think people, like, you can almost discern or see or perceive holiness is people who keep a close watch over their tongue. You know, it's all that Saint James talks about, like, keeping a close watch over your tongue, or as Jordan Peterson says, like, I think what he's trying to get at, and, like, being precise with speech, like say what you really mean. Be very careful about what you say and say what you mean. And obviously there's lots of different temperament in that. Like I was saying, I'm an extroverted thinker, so I'm going to say lots of things. So arguing, am I saying what I mean? Well, in as much as I am me. So in as much as I can, at this point in my life, that's what I'm trying to do. You know, someone else will say less, you know, and God bless them, because, you know, it's that whole thing, better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I take that return critique, you know.
Yeah.
I think
Can
it's
I ask
totally
you a
legit.
question that you might have no idea about?
Sure.
What do you think it means about a culture when all the religious parties in the culture are very intent on telling lots of people that they're going to hell? So I said, I'm in Sierra Leone right now. There's a lot of different Protestant groups. There's a sort of smaller group of Roman Catholics, and there's even more Muslims than Christians. And sort of the religious situation is weird because like everyone's kind of a juju practitioner on top of whatever else they happen to be, but
Right.
they're all telling each other that everyone else is going to hell all the time. It's like this is like the most fire and brimstone place I've ever been. It's really something, and I don't know what to make of it.
Huh. You think it's more, or it's just more like explicit, where there's like, you're going to hell, because they acknowledge religious things. It's not like, it's not so post-Christian, because like we do that in the States all the time. Like that's what Twitter is telling everyone they're going to hell without talking about, while simultaneously denying spiritual reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I just
Yeah,
think
well,
that's the world at large right now, isn't it? You know?
yeah, maybe, yeah, but it's just out in the open. Maybe that's all it is. Is that
Yeah.
it's really it's right there. You know, whenever you ride a bus, you'll have a preacher of some kind or other. I mean, it's funny because you'll be riding a bus from city to city, and like, you know, the Baptist preacher will come up and tell all the Muslims are going to hell, and then the imam will stand up and he'll tell all the, because they have like a preachers in the bus with like these megaphones yelling at you.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, I don't know, that's why I love this little corner. So I don't know if this is answering your question, but it's related to the topic, and so I agree with you. I think that's very common. And what do I think it means? I think it means we're unwell. Like that spirit is not a good one, I don't think. And I think the conversations that we're trying to have in this corner, that I feel like you and I are having this morning, are hopefully are cultivating and showing a spirit that has the kind of humility to be corrected,
Mm.
acknowledge when we're wrong or when we misspoke, that is moving toward that truth outside of the truth we currently apprehend. Because that's the only thing I'm interested in. It's not the kind of conversations telling everybody they're going to hell is like, it's these zero sum conversations. Like
Hmm.
those aren't real conversations. No one's talking in that. Like that's all rooted in like fear and ego and like fear of death, fear of hell, which is fundamentally anti-Christian. Like we shouldn't be scared of death as Christians, you know? Oh, sorry. Paul wants to come in. I need to post a link, my bad. Um and I don't know. I think that like one of the other things I was going to talk about is my buddy Sam Tiedemann was apparently there was some big skirmish between a bunch of Islamic online apologists and a bunch of ortho bros about
Oh boy.
something about like Christology of the early church, something like that, some dust up. And so Jake, the metaphysician, who knows Sam and who's been on Sam's channel before, Sam's been on his channel, he reached out to him, and Sam was maybe thinking about whether or not to talk to him, and Tripp and I were talking to Sam about whether or not this is something he should do. And I was just like, yeah, sure, go ahead. But then Tripp made some helpful caveats and clarifications. You know, and Tripp and I have this kind of relationship. Like Tripp and I are very different people, but like we love each other and we get along and we have great conversations. So I think it's perfect. I think it's great to have these diverse conversations with people, but only I don't want to be used, mammon. I don't want someone to use me as a foil to just justify your zero sum, I win, you lose Machiavellian game. Like that's the opposite of the thing Jordan Peterson's talking about. And I have no interest in that. Like I don't want to play that game. I don't know why you'd want to play that. I actually don't think you want to play that game. You just don't know that you don't. What's up, PVK?
Oh, so much fun to see you guys this morning. Max, and then I haven't seen you before either. I saw Dolly for the first time. So you're in Sierra Leone?
I am, yeah.
Tell me more.
I sent you an email about it. I wanted to talk with you, but I know it's fine.
Sorry, email's a mess.
Yeah,
And the puppy just turned my world upside down. So,
no problem.
Is your email under Max? Because I'm thinking I was yesterday in my office in the morning. The puppy was in the crate. I could record a video. I'm getting out of puppy prison just in time to go to Europe. So
yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I think it's probably my work email. So probably Max. No, it's MAGYERTED. That's what it'd be. Oh, great! I've told the internet that, but it's fine.
Unless PVK like reposts this, it won't get that many views.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, so I work for John Hears. He's my boss.
Oh yeah,
I know this guy.
Yeah, it's a fun guy.
Is he a good boss?
He's a really interesting boss. Yeah, I mean, I like him. He's a scattered guy, but it works. He kind of co-leads with this other guy who was one of his first field workers, who was like sort of his foil, who's like really sort of organized and make sure that things get done.
So are you Orthodox?
I am, yeah. I've been Orthodox for a little more than 2 years.
Okay.
Can you tell by his glow?
Somebody pinged in a comment some of this rigorous thing, and I'm not following that. So what's the rigorous debate in Orthodoxy?
Okay, so I'm going to do a bad job of explaining this, but I'll try to explain it.
If I don't know anything, you'll improve me.
Yeah, right, but I've got an audience. Yeah, so probably the arch rigorist is Father Peter Hears, who's John's brother, who's got an internet presence. Yeah. So, but their take is that there's no there's no grace in some way. Grace does. Oh, hey Sam, I know him. Anyways, so there's no grace outside the church in a particular way. Like, you know, they would say there's grace acts in some ways outside of the church, but like it's not salvific. Like as far as how grace works outside of the church, it's just undifferentiated darkness. They point to
what are they preaching? Common grace or something?
You Calvinists have an
idea
that sounds like that.
So sorry, Max. I don't want to interrupt you. Keep going.
No, like the main thing they're doing with it is that they're saying that like baptisms outside of the church shouldn't count. So like, you know, when you become Orthodox, you should get rebaptized because the sacraments only count if they're done within the church. And then like the other side is saying that in the fourth and fifth ecumenical councils, it was like determined that that's not the case. And they talk about how in various councils, like there's instructions for how to bring someone into the church as long as they're part of like a group that still has apostolic succession. So like they point to how I don't know, that like the non-Chalcedonians were brought into the church with only a confession of faith. Like they didn't even have to get like chrismated, I don't believe.
Even the Arians didn't need to get rebaptized to be let back into the church.
And don't start coming in with
in the
historical
CRC,
facts.
I could rebaptize Sam. People want me to rebaptize them, and I can't do it. But Sam, I could rebaptize.
The Council of Nicaea said biblical Unitarians need to be rebaptized, so you're in good company there. But Arians did not.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks.
So Sam, I'm glad you're here because like this, like I don't know, this debate. Okay. I gotta check myself before I say.
Thank you, Max. Thank you for that. Because even though you just gave us a broad brush, it was helpful. Now I have an idea.
What was Max talking about? Some sort of rigorous movement within Eastern Orthodoxy?
Yeah.
I mean, every denomination has that wing of them. You know, that like the Lutherans have their very conservative, only Lutheran baptisms and, you know, closed table communion, rigorous faction. And they're more, well, you know, the other Christians are, you know, Christians too kind of faction. And so and like you can see these debates were there in like the 2nd century too.
Yeah.
You know, they're as old as Christianity itself on the rigorous versus more accommodationist spectrum.
Yeah.
So I think what's going on is that there's a lot of converts in the States, especially, that are joining Orthodoxy right now. And what they're looking for is something, I mean, they're looking for something traditional and something that's like fundamentally different from the sort of the Christianities that they've gone away from. And there's a perception that a lot of those ways of doing Christianity were sort of wimpy about things, right? And so like I think that's part of the reaction is that there's a lot of like converts that are really hoping that Orthodoxy will be not wimpy. And so when they see people like Father Peter here's, who I mean I don't want to say anything bad about him, although I probably disagree with him, especially since he's my boss's brother. I think that you know that people like that end up having movements around them because they see that as a legitimate way of correcting the tendencies and the Christianity they came from.
It's all opponent processing. We're trying to get the balances right.
It's temperament.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in there too. And
but the temperament is also the temperament is also there for solving these practical issues.
Yeah.
The temperament spectrum.
Yeah. Oh, this is so much fun. A new guy, 3 guys I love. What a great way to start the day.
You could say it's something to do with wrestling with God. I don't know. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Right hand and left hand. How are you doing, Chad?
I'm good. I just got done quick setting some Mosaic tiles. I'm waiting for them to dry so I can grout this thing. But other than that, I'm doing well. And
I wish we all lived in the same place.
Yeah, for sure. I was, this morning I for some reason one of your old videos popped up. It had Luke, Jeff, and Job, and it was your first time you did a multi-person video.
I memed that. I remember memeing that conversation. and I made like the temperament map of this little corner of the internet, and like each person was representative of their temperament quartile, and I remember that conversation very clearly.
I was in the radical restorationist conservative.
No, you're in the shamanic corner, Luke. If I remember correctly.
And I was thinking about that. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chad.
Well, it's been on my mind is the gratitude that I've been having for the ability to do what we're doing right now, and because it's so abundant for us. Like the further we go down the road, I think it can be for some of us, maybe not for Sam because he has to deal with this stuff immediately, but it's easy to forget that how great it is that we can do this, and how like readily available it is, and like and I don't know, I just have a lot of gratitude for it because going into the next the next year is going to be difficult, I imagine, and I'm going to need to be able to talk to you guys because I don't know what's going on in the world, and I'm still wrestling with stuff. I'm not wrestling with Christ anymore, but there's certainly a lot more to wrestle with. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, the Israel Gaza thing is, I mean, just watching it just possess the internet is quite something.
It's going to make every theological conversation more difficult.
Here's what's interesting. I haven't watched any of it. What I have done is talked with Chazi, and it's become personal.
Right.
And so that's very different now.
Yes.
And I'm concerned, like, where's Nahama and what's going on with those folks? And so it's a completely different thing. Kind of like what Luke talks about with C.S. Lewis. A lot of what you see is who you are and where you're standing and all that stuff.
Well, at the kind of the end of my conversation with John Vervaeke at Chino, I mean, for me, this is why we build this, because otherwise, I mean, not that this little corner is going to give me a monarchical vision on all truth, however Luke wants to define truth, but this at least is a place for me to process and to listen. And you're right, Chad. Chezi and Nahama, I think about them. Of course, Jacob is doing his thing. But of course, if we had relationships with Palestinians, then we'd have their input. And you just look at the food fight on the internet, and I want to talk to a real human being.
Well, that's why I'm so passionate about non-zero sum conversations, because if you don't participate, if you participate in that spirit long enough, I think we will revert to non-zero sum physical warfare.
Yeah, and I want to get better because we have a food fight coming to us that I'm not looking forward to at all. The last one we had was exhausting. And
which one? The one over
presidential
our religion,
election, I think,
our American religion of the presidential election.
Oh,
yes, exactly. And that's all coming down the pipe. I mean, and that was a really sticky food fight. It had all sorts of stuff in the buffet thrown around, and it was a lot. And and though I sit on a particular side,
which side, so I can keep listening or not?
Well, so it's so funny because I voted a particular way, and it's the first time I ever voted, and I only voted because I thought the answer to me was clear on who to vote for, and then I later come to think like the thing was rigged, and now I don't give a shit about any of that. But what really is concerning is how exhausting it is. It's so exhausting, and it's a lot to deal with on top of everything else. And I never had a mortgage. I have a mortgage now. I have to worry about that. I have to worry about being a husband, and trying to have kids. Are we going to have them or not? And now I'm in a church, and it's interesting. That's why I've been jumping back and listening to a lot of history stuff, because it's fascinating, but I don't know. I'm rambling. Sorry, guys. I'm going to take over. Max, it's good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you, Chad. I've seen you a ton.
Wow.
How did you find this little corner, Max?
Oh, the boring old way. It was Peterson, Peugeot, and then started watching your stuff and from there, Grail country.
What exactly are you doing in Sierra Leone?
So small aid projects. Basically, what First Things does is we find people that are doing things, and then we help them do them. So I have a number of projects I'm trying to raise money for right now. I'm trying to raise money for a guy who wants to get a rice mill in his village so that people don't have to, travel long distances to mill their rice. And I'm trying to help some people raise money for a school so they don't have to keep doing school in a field. I'm helping another guy start a chicken farm because he knows everything you could possibly know about chickens, but he doesn't have the funds to actually build the building that he needs and get the stuff to get himself off the ground. So what First Things basically does is we go to places and we spend the first 8 months just getting to know the culture and just hanging out with people and sort of becoming fluent in everything that's going on around. And then after that, the hope is that you kind of learn to figure out who are good people to work with, who are people that are just trying to take advantage of you, that will just take your money and run, all of these things. And then you work on the basis of individual relationship. So you don't really work with organizations as much as you find people and then talk to those people about what they're trying to do and go from there.
Good work. A lot of people, the helping industry is a big one, and figuring out how to help people is super hard. It really is.
I'll tell you one of the things that I'm happiest with is there's a guy here that we've built one with so far, and we're working to build another, and I don't see why we won't keep building wells. And what I really like about it is that he keeps choosing these small little villages to build wells in. And other NGOs just won't touch it, because when other NGOs build wells, they want stats about how many people are going to be using that well, so they can report back that they've helped X many people. So right. I'm excited that I'm in this place where I can be, oh yes, this tiny little village needs a well. They're drinking out of a pit right now with feces in it, so it'd be better if they had a well. Yeah. So then I've been able to contribute to that a little bit, and that has just been awesome.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
What country was Shelley in? Or maybe we can't say that. Never mind.
I have a
nearby to you, Max.
Yeah. She was in Mali, I think.
Guinea? I thought it was Guinea.
I thought it was Guinea.
Was it Guinea? Oh,
I thought it was Guinea.
I'm really close to Guinea. It's I could travel for 3 hours and be in Guinea. Yeah.
On a dirt road in a war. Yeah. If you had an 80-mile-per-hour highway, you could be there in half an hour.
If you traveled for 3 hours in Haiti, you wouldn't get real far.
Yeah, Max, that's awesome. I grew up very much like Jess P has a very similar story. I don't know. I was always a radical zealot evangelical, so I was I need to be a missionary and be a martyr. But then what's cool about
you're speaking in the past tense, Luke.
Still, it's kind of that way.
Radical zealot doesn't change. Just what he's radical and zealous about.
I'm older. I have less testosterone. Am I less idealistic? Probably not. But it's funny. My son is kind of this way. I think I always wanted to be. This is the truth. Like the difference between red martyrs and white martyrs within Orthodoxy, and I think maybe that's within Catholicism too. But I always thought the idea of being a martyr and a missionary was better, because then it would just force me into doing what I should do. Because it's always been what I find to be really hard. To me, being a missionary is black and white. This isn't to diminish what you're doing. God, it's awesome. But I'm saying for me, I was just that seems like an easier choice, because it seems so much harder to me to be a Christian in the mundane, being a Christian in America with affluence and time and Netflix and consumerism and making Christian choices within that morass seems to me to be a lot harder than just going and just being it's kind of what it makes me think of. Have you ever read the book Silence or watched the movie?
I've seen the movie.
So like that, which is one of my other favorite pieces of art and film. But that book, deals with that question of like what is it. It's such a great, like, Peter Rollinsy, what is faith, what is faithfulness to God look like, because that's really at the end, like Father Rodriguez, what does it mean to him in his life, in his situation that he was put in, to be faithful to Christ? What does it look like? And and I mean, I don't want to like say what he did or what it was, but that book is so brilliant. And I think in a lot of ways, like me to be a monk. Like I feel like that'd be easier. Or like my son has said, like his way of getting discipline, he's decided, is like he's gonna just join the military. I'm like, or you could just like be disciplined. You could just like do little disciplined things.
No half measures, Luke.
Yeah, I know. I know.
How are you doing, Sam?
So I think maybe part of what inspired Luke's title for this video is, so a couple weeks ago, did any of you guys know the Patrick Bet David channel? I'd never really heard of this. He seems like a kind of a right-wing sort of guy. I'm looking at his most popular videos. It's like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, Alex Jones, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Pool. So he's like over there. And he had a debate between some Muslims and some Christians that's 2 weeks ago, that has 1.1 million views, which is like got to be one of the biggest high profile internet debates between Christians and Muslims that's happened recently. And the Muslims kick the Christians' butt, like, honestly, because
that's what we're supposed to do.
Well, I think they didn't. The Christians they had weren't the best. They weren't our best. I'll just put it that way. And so this has caused a lot of the other Christian anti-Islam YouTube channels to try and be like, all right, I'm going to try and correct for the mistake that this Christian side did. And
what's the name of this guy and this? I'm sure it'll come up.
If you go to PBD podcast. PBD podcast. You can find
not mine. Mine is TRT podcast.
He's got 1.4 million subscribers, so it's decently pretty big channel.
You had Roseanne Barr on.
Roseanne Barr, and and all like over there. We know where that over there place is. But so a lot of what's coming up is the Muslim side, and one of the main guys on the Muslim side was Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, who's been on my channel a couple times. He's one of my. I actually generally like the guy, and so a lot of the people criticizing Jake were like, Jake made some points saying no one believed in the Trinity before year whatever, and I can tell that he's getting some of his ammunition from my Church Fathers series, and in fact I know that personally. And
you're like Iran.
What?
You're like Iran.
I know. Well, so it's weird. So Jake wants to bring me on his channel to help refute some of the Christian arguments, which I'm like kind of happy to do at some level, because a lot of their arguments were pretty terrible. And their history was just bad. Like it would be the easiest fact check debunking that that anyone would ever have to do. But then I'm like on the Muslim channel criticizing the Christians, and like the optics of that aren't perfect, and so
but like this is part of my whole reason for the stream, is like that ought to be perfectly fine and be okay. Like if everybody was committed to the actual truth rather than zero-sum winning, it wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't be an issue. The reason it's an issue is because we're playing games and lying to ourselves.
And Jacob mutes himself out of sheer determination.
I muted myself because there's construction in my apartment.
But I think that there is a way that I could handle this conversation. Could like find a church after that. I mean, my life's already like at this point, it's like I have nothing to lose. What do I have to lose? Like how many more strikes can I have on my record before it doesn't matter how many strikes are on my record?
You know what I'd like to hear? I'd like to hear Christ in one of these debates, like actually Christ in one of these debates.
So,
would
Phlebas,
he win it?
the world is real. Are you just saying it's real that everybody's playing games and lying, and you have to acquiesce to that? I don't think so.
The funny thing is that when you use a sort of this non-zero argument and use lying to bolster a non-zero argument, you've got tension in there.
What do you mean?
Well, the judgment call of declaring a lie is a binary judgment.
Well, I don't think they think they're lying.
Well, they might be mistaken. Being mistaken is not lying.
It's more like the conversation. The Jordan Peterson illustration of fighting with your wife is perfect. Everybody knows that you don't want to win that. You know that, but you don't know that because you don't act that way because you try to win.
There's a way in which that analogy breaks down. I can fight with Sam, and fighting with my wife are two very different things. Now, I love Sam and I love my wife, but I certainly don't love them in the same way.
Yeah, but the spirit of what I'm talking about is different. That's why I said dangerously erotic conversationalist.
And I think I could go on this Muslim. I've been on this Muslim channel before, for the record. So like when it's not that weird, but I could do it in I think such a way that was trying to be like, guys, like everyone needs, if we're going to have a real conversation here, if we're going to have a real debate, if we actually care about the truth, then we at least do need to have some amount of agreement on some of these ground facts that are not that hard to look up and find. And that the Christian side was just not doing a good job, and either in the big debate or in the follow-up rebuttals. And it's frustrating. If Christianity really thinks it's seeking after the truth, then some amount of facts and logic matters too. And I do find it frustrating, seeing all of this attention getting paid to people who are saying things that are just easily debunkable. That does bother me at some level. And so I don't know. I think there's a way to try and elevate it out of the zero sum, Christian versus Islam thing. And I have a weird sort of way in that I can wiggle between both sides on that. I don't know.
I have a question. How does this relate to the parable of the weeds? Because that's been on my mind lately as it relates to this stuff. Like he says, I think he says something along the lines of like basically it's none of your business. I'll do the sorting after, or something like that.
Or well, don't try and pull the weeds up now because you could hurt the wheat in the process.
Right.
And
when right.
At harvest time, yeah. Because the wheat still needs to grow. Yeah.
Right. When is the harvest?
Every day is harvest day.
Pull them up then, bitch. It's like, God, it's ridiculous.
That's the judgment I'm talking about. That's that either or crap.
Pardon my language, Paul.
Okay, Jacob, what's up?
People who don't have the truth on their side resort to violence, and for a very long time, Christianity has been resorting to violence.
It's not like Islam hasn't done a little bit of that too from time to time.
It's not like Jews haven't been doing that from time to time. But honestly, I think there's a reason some people resort to violence. It's because they don't have an argument.
Well, there are other reasons why people resort to violence too. And I think we just saw a great example of that. I mean, it's the world is so hard.
Ooh, let's think about the symbolic thing of weeds are often nitrogen fixing. Pulling in food from the sky, from the spirits.
I've got to run because I've got coffee break and Freddie and all kinds of things this morning. So with the puppy, I'm taking the puppy everywhere I go. So
well, and I think I need to go and live my life too. So I think unless anybody has any final things they want to say, I'm probably
Is your wife
calling
still
it.
gone, Luke?
I mean, kind of.
Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good.
Nothing like that.
Do we have to get Sam $3 so we can watch my conversation with Laura?
I'll just
give me
$3
too.
And give money to YouTube.
Oh,
what are you trying to do, Paul? What are
my
you trying
conversation
to do?
with Laura was one of the greats.
I believe
bet.
you, but why are you trying to make me give money? I'm already giving money to a Trinitarian church. Now you want me giving money to YouTube.
Well, hey, Jacob, if it makes you feel better, some tiny fraction of the money you give to YouTube pays my salary. And then so that can recycle back into Paul's channel.
Just designate it.
Paul, did you like how misogynistic I made you sound in that video? My favorite part was when I was like, when she was like, so the only thing I'm concerned with, and then I cut her off. Totally did a total like alpha move there. But I gotta go too, guys. I love you guys. Be easy, guys. Later.
Paul, you want me to send you another email?
Yeah, send me another email. Just be patient with me, because I've got 2 weeks, and then I've got Europe and Tayo. Am I going to see you in the UK? I'm going to be in the UK, so I'm all anxious about how I'm going to. I planned extra time in the UK, and now I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to spend it. So I'm trying to figure that out.
Speaker's Corner.
You think I should go
Debating
there
Muslims with facts and logic.
Yeah, just try and TLC the Speaker's Corner and see what happens.
Oh gosh, that would be hell for me. Going there and feel just like hell. Terrible. But Mateo, I appreciate you going. All right. Good day, gentlemen.
Good day. Thanks
for
for starting the stream, Luke. I watched yours too, Jacob, and I'd love to hear more from Jacob, and I'd love to hear a TLC Israeli group, because like Chad, I'm thinking and praying for Hezi and Nahama, and
we spoke more about it the 5-hour stream that
the day before
that. The day
when
before.
that was the day before? Okay, so I can listen to that one.
Yeah, it's 5 hours long.
I put in tons of timestamps. I watched the whole thing.
So
for a 5-hour one, it was actually one of the better ones. Yeah,
it was good.
All right. So
all right.
Thank you all.
See you, gentlemen.
All. Great to meet you, man. Yeah, you can send me another email. I'll try and get my schedule under control with this puppy. It's getting better. So
cool.
All right.
Goodbye.